Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. Really glad you could join me today out here in the vegetable garden. It's a beautiful day to be out in the garden. You know, here it's in Pennsylvania, Zone 6. It's mid-July, and so it's going to be one of those hot, humid days. Well, anyhow, today I wanted to give you an early summer garden update on my Black Beauty zucchini plants that I direct sowed back a couple months ago in the garden. And so this is the variety that I used. So thanks for joining me today. So I've been gardening for over 25 years now, and you know, one thing you realize when you start to garden, like a lot of things in life, is that it's one big learning curve, you know, and so I'm still learning. You know, I just love to study and question everything and search out, and you know, you learn from others. And but this year in my garden, I decided to grow my zucchini plants in my garden containers that I built out of these 55-gallon drums. I did a video on that, how to build indestructible raised garden beds out of these blue barrels that you may have seen around. And so I planted my zucchini in those garden containers, only because these zucchini plants, you know, they get over 4 feet in diameter, and they just get huge and overtake your garden sometimes. You know, if I did square foot gardening, you know, I'd probably need, you know, 16 squares for these to take up. That's how much space they take up, one plant. You know, they would overshadow and take over, you know, a lot of your other plants. Same with my cauliflower or my broccoli. You know, they just get huge and spread out really far and wide. So anyhow, this year I decided to grow them in my garden containers, and they've really worked out really well. Most of my beds, I have 3 of them that are 4 foot by 32 foot long, divided into 4 8-foot sections. And so I used to grow a couple of my zucchinis in there, and they would, you know, one plant would almost take up half my bed. You know, so growing them in containers this year has really worked out well for me. It's something I would encourage you to think about doing with your zucchini. And I filled mine with my composted leaf mulch, amended with topsoil, and then I also added some of my alfalfa pellets as a slow release fertilizer throughout the season. So let's go take a look at these zucchini plants in the containers. And so I have a couple of these zucchini plants growing in some containers down here in my, what I call my pumpkin patch area. And so these zucchini are straight ahead on the other side of the garden. And so a couple of these here, I did end up buying a couple of these zucchini plants from Ray's Nursery, but I also direct sowed these zucchini plants out here in these garden containers. Because what I would encourage you to do is grow your zucchini in intervals or succession, like a lot of your other plants. You know, and especially if that vine borer, you know, gets into your zucchini, that's going to kill your plant. And so I always have learned through the years to grow a lot of my zucchini at intervals throughout the season, and it has really worked well. And so this is one of the ones here that I had direct sowed out here in the garden. And you can see that I have some nice zucchini growing on there. And you want to go through your plants and cut off any dead leaves that you might have. What are you doing down there, Bailey? And I go through with my penknife and cut off any dead leaves. And But you want to make sure too that these zucchini get at least 6 to 8 hours of sun, and these are also heavy feeders, so you want to make sure you fertilize these plants throughout the season, like your peppers and tomatoes. You know, they're all heavy feeders. And then I have another plant over here that I direct sowed some seeds here June 2nd, and it has a nice little zucchini growing on it. But if you take a look at this plant, you can just see how big it is and why I grew them in my containers. Now these containers, like I said, they were 55-gallon drums, and I cut them down into different circles or rings. Some of them have bottoms on them, like if I used the barrel, when I used the barrel, the tops and the bottoms obviously had bottoms on that I had to drill holes. But these particular ones were 23 inches across, were in diameter, and about 12 inches deep. And so you want a nice big container for your zucchini plants. I've also seen people grow these in those wooden barrels that you can buy at the store, some of these home centers or garden centers. But yeah, they get about 4 feet across or more, depending on your soil conditions. You know, if you have good, rich, fertile soils, nice loose soil, these plants are just going to really thrive like most plants will. And so let's go take a look at some of the other zucchini plants that I have in the garden. And so I have another one growing up here at my garden structure. Let's go take a look at that. And so right up here on the end here, I have some peppers here growing in these same containers, and some red Russian kale, tomato plant, and I have this other zucchini here. Again, let me encourage you to think about growing these in succession. It works so much better that way. My wife and I love our zucchini here. We sometimes let them get nice and big so we can make a nice zucchini boat out of them. And you know, you get a nice big zucchini, cut it in half, and you scoop out the centers and use the same zucchini filling, and you add tomatoes and peppers and onions to it, and then you put it back in the zucchini, and then you bake it for like 350 for an hour, and it really tastes delicious. And so you can see how nice these zucchinis have been growing in these garden containers. So let's go into one other area below my pond and take a look at my other plant that I have growing down there. So let's head down the other side of the pond there to my pumpkin patch area. So it's right down below here is where I have my one last zucchini plant that I wanted to show you. And so down in this area I have 4 of my raised beds here. I repurposed some old picnic tables that I had around. And down here I grow some acorn squash. I have some Martin House gourds plant growing here. You can see the little tiny gourd right there. And then I also have some butternut squash growing up there, some pumpkins, and some really nice blue Hubbard squash. But up here on the end of one of these planters or raised bed, I have my zucchini plant growing here. And I actually just picked a couple of these zucchini off of here the other night. And so, but you can see again how big and wide they are. And so you can see the advantage of growing these in intervals or succession. I would always encourage you to plant more vegetables. You know, if you have more, you can always give them away to friends and family. And because, you know, if that vine borer gets in the zucchini plant, it's gonna, you know, obviously kill it. And so, you know, the other alternative is to grow these zucchini plants under row covers. But then if you did that too, you would have to self-pollinate or hand-pollinate those zucchini plants. But anyhow, let me encourage you to think about direct sowing some zucchini seeds out in your garden at intervals throughout the season so that you can have plenty of zucchini plants to have to choose from throughout the season. And so if you have any questions or comments about this video, feel free to leave them in the section below. And I just want to thank you for joining me today out here in the vegetable garden. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.